Well, it's no secret that the Jeep Wrangler is one of the greatest and the most hardcore SUVs on the planet Earth. While its competitors have put more focus on luxury and comfort, the Jeep Wrangler has stayed true to its origins. Now, it will be a crime not to talk about the off-road capabilities of this thing. So we have come to the off-road adventure zone in Gurgaon just to check out how does it perform on the very terrains we have here. Of course, we'll talk about the on-road and the off-road capabilities of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. But before we start, please like this video, share it with your friends, comment your thoughts on it, and also, is a must, subscribe to the ICF channel. With that being said, now start with the video. But before we head down to the good stuff, let's take a moment to praise how amazing and utilitarian the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is. It gets a very neat design and it harks to the original Willys and the Wranglers of the world, and the characteristics of the design are intact even today. On the front, we get the traditional Jeep grille with 7 slats that are flanked by LED headlights that are round, of course. Now these lights incorporate a projector along with a round LED DRL, whereas another DRL placed on the side fenders as well. The side fender DRL also doubles up as a turn indicator. As you can see, this bumper, it is of course plastic because of the safety norms and the pedestrian norms, but it is sturdy enough that I can sit on it. I have sat on it and there have been no issues at all. Because when you are off-roading, when you want to scout for something, you can actually stand on it and it will take no beating at all. One interesting trivia I want to share is that in the UK spec models and the European models of the Wrangler, you actually get a keyhole on the front grille to open the bonnet. But in the Indian spec model, there is no provision like that. You just have to unlatch these two things and there's just a hinge that you have to pull. Of course, it is quite heavy, but once you do so, you can actually open the bonnet. Now, I'm not giving any ideas to the thieves that you can steal the batteries because you will actually be caught, but that's an interesting quirk. The windscreen can be placed down if you want to have, as Jeep likes to call it, air on your face, but I am not a fond of it. What I am a fond of actually is the openable rooftop. So the front roof panels can be taken off with just 4 unlatches and then you can store them in the boot, and then you can have the so-called air in your hair feel. But let me tell you that you are not supposed to look out and sneak out of the roof because that is not advisable and not safe either. Now let's talk about other design details like those 17-inch alloy wheels that are draped in 33-inch BF Goodrich mud terrain tires. Now the 33 inch is the diameter of the wheel, whereas the actual size of the alloy is 17 inch. And this is a Rubicon, of course, so you actually get the Rubicon stickering all across the hood. The new Wrangler also incorporates the provision of removing the doors, so you can actually remove all the 4 doors of the SUV and you can actually put them aside, and there is also provision to store the important screws and nuts in the boot itself. What you can also do is remove the hardtop for the second row and in the boot. That comes out as a single unit, and then you can store it in a garage and the whole roof of the car becomes open, and that's one hell of an experience. But again, you need some tooling for that and a big storage space where you can safely put that roof. Now you see that badge, that holds some importance. All the Jeeps that can meet some parameters as per the internal testing, they get the related badge, and the Rubicon, of course, being the god of all the off-road SUVs, proudly wears that badge. Now around the side, these are the exposed door hinges, of course. With some tooling, you can unscrew these bolts and take the whole door out. The door handles are really massive in my opinion, and of course it doesn't get your typical keyless entry and go function, so you have to unlock the car with a key before opening the doors, and the opening is fairly wide in my opinion. But the problem that I face the most while seating in the second row is that the opening isn't that wide, and another problem being the protrusion from this hinge. So whenever you are making a way in, you can rub it against your back and that can really hurt. Now another trivia I would like to share is that you don't have to necessarily open the fuel cap from the inside. It's open for all, but you cannot open the fuel cap filler without a key. So you will have to use the key, flip it, and then put it in the keyhole to open the fuel filler. So the point is you will have to turn off the car, come out and do it yourself, because you of course cannot give your key to the fuel station guy. Now at the rear, These tail lights look rather similar to another SUV. I would not like to name that particular one, but you get the gist, right? Now if I open the boot, you will again notice some uncanny resemblance with another SUV. Again, I would name it, but that turns me on to the fact that the boot space on this thing is really impressive. I do not have the official capacity of it, but the space is squared off and there's ample amount of storage spaces as well. Now, one more interesting fact about the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is that, of course, people will actually upsize its tires. It's currently has 33-inch tires, but they could go 35-36 inch as well. So what Jeep has also made sure is that there's a mandatory stop lamp at the back. So if you upsize the tire, this is also height adjustable. So there's a mechanism behind that, so with which you can actually adjust the height of the stop lamp without removing it. So that's again a very nice thinking from Jeep India, and of course the Jeep Global, because they designed the car. Jeep India didn't. What Jeep India did was they assembled the car in India. So back in 2021, the CKD model was launched, and that was priced around 13 lakh off the CBO mark. So 13 lakh rupee price cut straight up on the on-road price is big deal in my opinion. Now, as we are done with the exterior design of the Jeep Wrangler, why don't we step on the inside and have a look? So climbing up in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is rather easy. You just have to pull up that grab handle and you are in. Of course, it's kind of a step up, but this helps particularly. Now let's talk about the overall interior. Let me ignite the car. So the moment you sit inside the Jeep Wrangler, you are greeted with a very nice interior layout. I like the fact that it is equally rugged as much as it is luxurious. We have got a ton of soft touch materials on the top part of the dashboard, whereas this red bit is kind of flashy, but not something that will gain scratches because it's in a matte finish. And then we have a huge grab handle at the passenger side that also gets the Wrangler lettering, and this helps for the passenger to step inside easily. And there's again another grab handle to help the passenger inside the car. Once you are in, you will also be surprised to see that the power window controls are on the dash, and that's because you can actually remove all the 4 doors of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon and make it your off-road trail friendly SUV. Now we have got a ton of controls lower down which are specific for the 4-wheel drive drivetrain. We have got a specific lever for the transfer case with which you can change from 4 high, 4 low and neutral and all the modes that there are. We also get an off-road plus button with which the car actually enhances its off-road characteristics by changing the engine map, the gearbox change and a lot of stuff. And we also get a sway bar disconnect button that here is. What it essentially does is when you press on it, it will actually disable the front sway bar that in India we like to call as anti-roll bar. Sway bar is a terminology used in US. So it basically disenables the front anti-roll bar, and with which it will actually improve the articulation of between both the wheels. So if one wheel is in the deck, the other will get a more free movement to gain some traction. Now we have got some nice looking AC vents around here. There is a big glove box, but the quirk of it is that if someone is sitting on this seat, the space is not that much, so he or she won't be even able to open the glove box till the time they do not step out of it. So that's one quirk of it. So we get an 8.4-inch touchscreen infotainment system in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. It comes with both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but those are wired, and it also gets an off-road specific page where you can find all the data related to the off-road driving. That could be your pitch and rollover angles, all the temperatures of the essential fluids, and of course the channel of power that is between the front and rear axles. So it is a very nice infotainment to use in that sense. And there is also 7-inch digital instrument cluster between the dials, and it shows all the essential data like turn-by-turn navigation, your music playback, tire pressure monitoring system, and all the other essential data that you would expect, including pitch and roll for the off-road specific mode. There is also a tiny display that is dedicated for the 4-wheel drivetrain. So we get 2 high, 4 auto, 4 high part-time, neutral and 4 low. So that's an indication just to let you know that you are in which particular mode. Now let's talk about the practicality bits, because that's something that you will come in handy when you are on the long journeys. we get two cup holders here, and there's actually a nice recess to store the key. If I show you, this is the key and it goes here without a problem very nicely. And then we get a small storage here, I don't know why it is for. And then there's another small storage to hold your tickets maybe. So this is that place. And we get a large armrest. On the top layer we can put some stuff, some small stuff, like I've put the box. And then down below there's a huge storage space along with a USB charging port as well. So of course it's not cool, but you get the gist. And then we have these sunshades, and they get LED incorporated in them, and you know they slide as well. So that's again a very nice touch in my opinion. I never expected that to happen, to be honest, but yeah, they do. And the same case happens on the side as well. Now let's go to the back to check out how is the space and comfort at the rear. Now, like at the front, it is again a big step up to get inside the rear, but there's a grab handle that helps a lot in that sense. But once you are in, let me undo this seatbelt because I put my bag here when I was driving the car off-road. So yeah, as you can see, it was a step up, and in the elderly in your eyes could have some problems in the egress and egress, but once you are in, you sit really high. And let me tell you that if you are planning to buy the Wrangler as a family car, don't look at this way, because the space and the comfort on the rear is not good at all. I mean, the floor is of course very high because it is an off-roader, so the seats are quite low, and there is practically no underside support for me. I'm in a knees-up position, and thankfully there is good space to slide my feet in, but again the knee room is quite limited. There is ample amount of headroom, I am sure, and when you undo the roof there is unlimited headroom, but never ever sneak out of that roof because that is not advisable as per the safety purposes. Now let's not digress and talk about this rather nice pattern you get here. That's some rigid pattern, and you also get some straps here, of course of no use, but for styling purposes it does well. And then we get some net pockets here. These are the net pockets I'm talking about, and the similar net pockets can be found on the door as well. Surprisingly, the Wrangler doesn't get the typical bottle holders you find in the doors of the regular cars. We get some netting over here where you can put your stuff, but trust me, putting 1 liter bottles here is not as easy as it looks, because once you close the door, it constantly scrubs against the surfaces of the car, and that makes quite a ruckus. Apart from that, we get twin AC vents on the rear, and we get the power window controls here because of course the doors are removable. Then we get 2 USB type A charging ports, 2 USB type C charging ports, and another interesting fact is that we get a proper 230 volt 150 watt power output to power your laptop or some heavy appliances that you may use, like an electric kettle or something. So yeah, the space is rather compromised in my opinion, and the backrest is fixed, you cannot recline it, and it's at a steep angle, so it's not very comfortable in that sense either. What you can do is that you can pull this latch, that will bring your headrests down, and once you do that, you can actually put this whole seat down and it becomes a flat surface to increase the boot space. That is very practical, and so if you are on those off-road journeys, you can actually make it a bed as well. And if you are 2 people on board, you can actually drop down this armrest over here. Once dropped down, the headrest also comes along. So there are 2 cup holders of course, and you need recess to maybe put your phone in. I am not sure. Let's see if we can put. Okay, we can put our phone in as easy as it gets. So yeah, nice touch in my opinion. Now before I sum it up, just let me tell you that we get LED lights on the top, and these are the Alpine speakers. This gets around 9 Alpine speakers if I'm not wrong, and they sound really good in my opinion. And the whole interior of this car is washable, and so are these speakers. So if they get somehow wet in rain when you are taking the roof off, they won't get damaged because these are some kind of water resistant. So yeah, now as we have talked about the overall interior space of the Wrangler, let's hit the road. Now let's talk about the NCT driving of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Now let me start with the obvious first. The road presence of this SUV is something else. Everybody is down at your level. The regular SUVs feel like a hatchback when you are seated that up high, but even the visibility on that front is genuinely impressive. You can see the flat bonnet. There are nice recesses towards the side, so just to give you where the bonnet is ending, but that also gives you a false idea about the width of an SUV because there are flared wheel arches as well. So You may feel that it is not that wide, but actually the presence of the wheel arches makes it wider than what it is. And I'm sure you can hear the tire roar from those humongous around 33-inch BF Goodrich mud terrain tires. I'm sure the roar is audible in the mic, and you can't help it, to be honest. When you first drive it, you will feel that the obvious thing, but once you live a time with this thing, you will actually get used to it pretty easily. And now, of course, I'm in the city limits, so let's also talk about the driving comfort. Now, this is where it's quite complicated, because the suspension on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is impressive in its own way, and that says that it really flattens out all the bad patches of the road. The only problem is that it is never settled per se. You are obviously feeling some kind of motion all the time. The car is pitching, bouncing, but not in a bad way. I mean, of course, it causes some amount of discomfort sometimes, but that also gives you a reassurance that you can go above any kind of terrain, any kind of road imperfection without slowing down. Of course, when you hit a speed breaker hard, it's not that the suspension bottoms out, because the suspension on this thing is just something else, but the car wobbles a lot. So if you have hit a speed breaker at a higher speed, the car could catch an imbalance, but nothing to be afraid about. Now I am facing some dense traffic in the city of Gurgaon, and that's when I should tell you that the steering on this thing is unreal. I mean, you look at this SUV from the outside, you will feel that it will be cumbersome to drive, but no, not at all. The steering is really easy to twirl. It has a nice feel to it, of course not in an enthusiastic way. It is not overly assisted, and it is well calibrated. You know how much to turn in to make the car turn at your given preference, but yeah, you get the gist. I'm not saying that this is a very well-tuned steering, because of course it has some downsides as well, but for city driving and making the U-turns, 3-point turns that you will make with this SUV, you won't feel any discomfort, and that's for sure. Let's talk about ergonomics, because that's where the Jeep Wrangler could have done better in my opinion. First of all, the adjustability of the driver's seat is not right there. The fore and aft adjustability is quite lacking. So if you are a driver who likes to, sit in a lean back position, you cannot do so in the Jeep Wrangler, because the limited adjustability is there. The steering is very close to your chest, so at once it gives you a very commanding driving position and a very confidence inspiring position. It doesn't actually prefer a laid back driving style. You always have to put your both the hands on the steering, and it is not an comfortable position, but there is a benefit of that you can rest your elbow on the door, because that's perfectly aligned at that height, and you can rest your another arm on your armrest. So again, if you are driving this way, you are sorted for life, but this is a very relaxed cruising position, as I stated earlier. If you want to do some spirited driving, that's where the Jeep Wrangler lacks a little. Another ergonomic flaw in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon is the absence of electronically adjustable ORVMs. Of course, you can adjust the frame as per those controls positioned here, but the problem is that you cannot fold the ORVMs from the inside. You will actually have to do them manually, and trust me, these ORVMs are a big deal to fold, because they are rather big and heavy as well. Now this car has done around 15,738 kilometers as of now, and there are some kind of squeaking sounds coming from the roof and from the boot, but trust me, the way these media cars have been driven and the rough terrains they have encountered, I don't feel that's a problem. If you buy a new Wrangler off the showroom today, that may not have any kind of squeaking sounds or rattling sounds even after 30,000 kilometers, because I'm sure you won't be driving the car in a fashion that these cars have been driven. And now I should talk about the performance of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and that's where I'm truly surprised. I mean, when I first got to know that I will be driving the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, I didn't know that it will be enthusiastic to drive it. The performance from this 2-liter turbo petrol engine is unreal. It produces around 268 horsepower and 400 Nm of torque. I'll put the actual figures along with the RPM readouts on the screen right now, but trust me on this when I'm saying that the performance is genuinely unreal. You just floor the throttle and it just goes off the line. The gearbox responds quickly. It doesn't take a second or two to just think what gear to go in. it will just snap, 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 and you are going right away. In terms of overtaking and in terms of the overall performance, I'm genuinely impressed with the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and I'm sure you won't find the performance to be lacking in any part possible. Of course, it is not a SUV that you would like to drive on a high speed. I didn't even bother to go beyond 120 because first of all, that's not legal in India, and second of all, this car is not supposed to go that fast either, and I would not take a chance on that front, to be honest. Till 120, 130, this actually feels a lot more compliant than the earlier Jeeps that I have heard. But of course, this feels a lot more compliant, and you don't feel that the car is moving a lot and twitching or any kind of that stuff. It stays planted, and you have some confidence while it is on a higher speed. Now, handling is a thing that is never in a checklist when you are negotiating on a body-on-frame SUV, right? But the Wrangler also does perform fairly well in this regard. Of course, by no sense of imagination, this is a fun-to-drive SUV because it's not supposed to be that. But it is not horrible either. Of course, there's a ton of body roll when you are driving it on higher speed and making some turns, but it still holds its line, and the ESP then comes into the picture and controls the turn-ins of the car. So in that sense, I am genuinely surprised to see that yes, it handles well in that regard. Not by the car standards, but by the huge SUV standards that this one is. And talking about the fuel efficiency, a lot of you were intrigued to know, it is actually returning around 6.5 kmpl as of now. But I can tell you that around 7 to 8 is something that you can expect out of it while you are driving casually in the city. Once you hit the highway, the meter can actually show around 10 to 11 kmpl. So that's possible if you drive it in a sane way. Of course, when you rev the motor and you go fast, the mileage drops significantly, and the same happens when you are in the off-road bits. Now, we have done a thorough off-road test of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and that was something we should do if we have a Jeep Wrangler. So we did the same. We took it to the off-road adventure zone in Gurgaon and came out pretty impressed. All the modes, the 4 low, 4 high, and the differential locks, and especially the front sway bar disconnect, worked perfectly fine without throwing a single glitch all throughout. The mechanical finesse of this SUV is something that caught me surprised, in my personal opinion, because I expected some amount of glitches to happen when I am going through all these controls, because let me tell you, these controls are very complex to use. But when I did, I genuinely didn't encounter any kind of glitch with the system, and it worked perfectly fine. So well, if you have made it till the very end, I'm sure you are intrigued to know what are my thoughts on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And let me tell you that this is not as easy as it gets. If you are looking for a luxury SUV that costs around 70 lakh, you can for sure get better options like the Mercedes-Benz GLC and the BMW X3. Those are far more luxurious and far more road friendly. But what this SUV targets are a proper group of hardcore off-road enthusiasts. And if you are looking to have the best off-roader in the market, there is nothing practically better than the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. You can get this SUV bone stock from the showroom and conquer any terrain that is possible on the planet Earth, and it will conquer that without a single hiccup. The drivetrain, as I have tested, is fairly reliable. It never hicks up. The drivetrain modes are very good, and it feels at home when you are in an environment that likes the most, and that are the trails and the rock climbs of the world. The presence of the BF Goodrich tires is a proof that Jeep are not targeting towards normal buyers for the Wrangler. They are actually tapping on a very niche segment of the market. Those are the true enthusiasts who adore the beauty and the capabilities of an off-roader. So I think I did a fairly good job at summing it up, because that's what I think about the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Of course, you will have a lot of thoughts about it. So let me know what are your thoughts on the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and let's discuss in the comments below. If you have any further doubts, you can for sure follow our social media handles, that is Indian Car Fundamentals on Instagram, and we'll have a casual chat there. We also do Q&As every passing Sunday, so again, you will get to learn a lot there as well. With that being said, it's me signing off. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, drive safe.